Maya Chen, 29 years old. And 3 hours ago, my ex-boyfriend walked into my gallery opening without an invitation with his arm around someone else and smiled at me like he had every right to be there. He didn't apologize, didn't ask permission. Just walked straight to the centerpiece sculpture, the one I'd spent 8 months creating, the one made entirely from the shattered pieces of our old apartment, and said, "Wow, babe, this is really something," like he still owned. That word, like he still owned me. I could feel the weight of the champagne flute in my hand, the condensation, making my palms slick. The gallery lights were too bright, reflecting off the polished concrete floors, and everyone was watching. All I managed to say was, "Thanks," but when I said thanks, what I really meant was, "You have no idea that this entire exhibition is about destroying every memory of you, and you just walked into your own funeral." My name is on the wall in letters 2 feet high. Maya Chen Solo Exhibition, Reconstruction, and standing 15 feet away from me, admiring a sculpture I made from the coffee table he broke during our summit last fight, was Daniel Park, the man I spent 4 years loving and 2 years recovering from. The woman next to him, blonde, mid-20s, wearing the kind of dress I used to wear when I was trying to be what he wanted, leaned into him and whispered something. He laughed. That same laugh I used to think was charming before I learned it was the sound he made when he was performing for an audience. My best friend Jenna appeared at my elbow. "Do you want me to have him removed?" I watched Daniel move to the next piece, a series of photographs I burned and then reconstructed with gold leaf, the Japanese art of kintsugi applied to memories. He was studying them with his head tilted, the way he used to look at my work. When we were together, right before he'd say something that sounded like a compliment but felt like criticism. "No," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Let him stay, because here's what Daniel didn't know. What nobody in that gallery knew except Jenna and my therapist. 2 years ago, when Daniel left me for his coworker, when he moved out of our apartment and took half the furniture and all of my confidence, I didn't just fall apart. I mean, I did fall apart, but I fell apart in a very specific, very intentional way. I documented everything. Every piece in this exhibition was made from something we owned together. The sculpture he was admiring, our coffee table, the one he said I'd ruined by putting my feet on it, the photographs, every picture of us I could find transformed into something that belonged only to me. The installation in the back room, the one critics were calling devastatingly vulnerable, that was made from his old t-shirts, the ones he left behind because he said they didn't fit his new life. If you've ever wondered what happens when the person who broke you walks back into your life and finds out you've turned that breaking into art, into success, into something they can never touch again, stay with me, because what happened in the next 3 hours changed everything I thought I knew about being over. I need to back up. I need to tell you how I got here, standing in a gallery with my name on the wall, watching my ex-boyfriend realize piece by piece that he was looking at his own autopsy. 4 years ago, I met Daniel at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. I was 25, fresh out of grad school with an MFA in sculpture and about $30,000 in student debt. He was 28, working in tech, wearing a vintage band t-shirt that I later learned cost $200. He saw me sketching in my notebook and asked if I was an artist. I should have known then. The way he said artist with that little pause, like he was trying the word out, seeing if it fit in his mouth. But I was lonely, and he was handsome, and when he asked for my number, I gave it to him. When he texted me that night, I responded. When he suggested dinner at a place I couldn't afford, I said yes and pretended. The prices didn't make my stomach hurt. That was the script. He chose the restaurants. I pretended I wasn't calculating how many hours of freelance work each meal cost. He picked the movies. I learned to like what he liked. He decided when we'd see each other. I rearranged my studio time to fit his schedule. I told myself it was compromise. I told myself this was what relationships look like when you were an adult, when you were serious, when you were building something real. 6 months in, he asked me to move in with him. His apartment in Williamsburg, 1 bedroom, exposed brick. The kind of place I'd dreamed about when I was sleeping on my friend's couch and storing my sculptures. In a storage unit I could barely afford. It'll be good for your work, he said. You can use the second bedroom as a studio. Think about how much you'll save on that storage unit. He didn't mention that. His name would be the only one on the lease. That I'd be paying half the rent but have no legal right to the space. That using the second bedroom as a studio meant I could work there as long as I kept it clean enough that he could use it as an office when he needed to. I learned early not to expect my own key to the mailbox. Not to expect my name on the buzzer. Not to expect that when I said our apartment, he wouldn't correct me with my apartment, but you live here too. The first year was good. Or I thought it was good. I was working, creating, building a portfolio. I had a few small shows, sold a couple of pieces. Daniel would come to the openings, stand in the corner with his phone, leave early because he had work in the morning. I'm supporting you, he'd say when I asked him to stay longer. I'm here, aren't I? And he was, technically. Physically present while being emotionally absent, which I didn't realize was. Worse than not showing up at all. The second year, things shifted. Small things at first. He started working later, coming home after I'd already eaten dinner. He'd look at my sculptures and say things like, "That's interesting," in a tone. That meant the opposite. He stopped asking about my work and started talking more about about the promotion he was chasing, about the coworker who was really talented and going places. Her name was Ashley. I know because he said it approximately 400 times over the course of 6 months. Ashley thinks we should pivot the strategy. Ashley had this great idea in them. Meeting. I'm grabbing drinks with the team. Ashley's organizing it. Every time I said yes to him working late, it became harder to say no. Every time I rearranged my schedule for his convenience, he expected it more. Every time I made myself smaller to fit into his life, he made more room for someone else. The worst part was they truly believed he was being a good boyfriend. His friends, his family, even some of my friends. Daniel's so supportive of your art, they'd say. He lets you use his apartment as a studio. Lets me, like it was a gift. Like I wasn't paying half the rent. I started keeping a list in my notes app. Not because I was planning anything. Just because I needed to see it written down. Needed proof that I wasn't. Imagining the imbalance. March 15th, paid $600 for half of rent. Daniel's name on lease. March 20th, bought groceries, $143. Daniel ate most of it. Didn't offer to split. April 2nd, canceled studio visit with potential buyer because Daniel needed me to be home for furniture delivery. Lost possible $1,500 sale. April 18th, Daniel's mother's birthday dinner. Spent $80 on gift he said was from both of us. She thanked only him. The list grew. Every month, every week, every day, another entry. Another small cut that didn't seem like much until I looked at the total and realized I was bleeding out. By year 3, I wasn't making art anymore. I was making things Daniel liked. Smaller pieces, prettier pieces, pieces that fit in the corner and didn't take up too much space and didn't make him uncomfortable when his friends came over. Maybe try something more accessible, he'd suggest. Something people actually want to buy. As if my work wasn't selling because it wasn't good enough. Not because I'd stopped making anything that mattered. I got a part-time job at a gallery in Chelsea. Minimum wage plus commission, which meant mostly minimum wage. Daniel said it was good that I was getting serious about income. I didn't. Mention that I was getting serious about income because he'd started talking about how expensive the apartment was, how nice it would be if I could contribute more. I was already paying half. He wanted more than half. He wanted me to subsidize his lifestyle while he saved for his future, a future. He was increasingly describing in singular terms. When I buy a place, he'd say. Not when we buy a place, just when I. That was the script, and I'd learned my lines perfectly. Smile, nod, make yourself useful. Make yourself small. Make yourself so essential to his comfort that he won't leave, because if he leaves, where will you go? The breaking point came on a Tuesday in October 2 years ago. I came home from the gallery to find Daniel in the second bedroom, my studio, hacking my sculptures into boxes, not carefully, not with bubble wrap or tissue paper, just shoving them into cardboard boxes he'd gotten from the liquor store down. The street, the kind that still smelled like wine and had sticky residue on the bottom. What are you doing? I stood in the doorway watching him wrap a piece I'd spent 3 months on a newspaper. Ashley's moving in, he said, not looking at me. Just kept packing. She needs an office for remote work. I figured you could move your stuff back to storage. Not, I'm breaking up with. You. Not, we need to talk. Just, Ashley's moving in like it was a weather report, like it was something happening to him, not something he was choosing. He didn't ask if I was okay with it. Didn't ask where I would go. Just kept packing my work into boxes, and when I tried to take a sculpture from his hands, he said, "Careful, you're going to break it." I was going to break it, like he wasn't the one handling it like trash. All the air went out of the room. I could hear the traffic outside, the constant hum of the city that usually felt like energy, but right then felt like noise. I could see the dust particles in the afternoon light floating through the space where my work used to be. When? I asked. This weekend. I already told the landlord you're moving out. Your name wasn't on the lease anyway, so it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. 3 years of my life, not a big deal. Something inside me went very, very quiet. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. Someone who could pack up my life while talking about his new girlfriend moving in. Someone who thought this was an acceptable way to end a relationship. Someone who had never actually seen me as a person, just as a convenience. I realized I had been auditioning for a role in his life for 3 years, and I'd just been fired without notice. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just walked to the bedroom, pulled out my suitcase, and started packing my clothes. Where are you going? Daniel asked, appearing in the doorway. Does it matter? Don't be dramatic, Maya. You can stay until the end of the month. I'm not kicking you out. But he was. He absolutely was. He just wanted to do it slowly enough that he could tell himself he was being reasonable. I called Jenna from the street, standing next to my suitcase and 2 garbage bags of clothes, watching people walk past me like I wasn't having the worst day of my life. He did what? Jenna's voice went sharp with rage. Can I stay with you? Get in a cab right now. I'm texting you the address. I lived on Jenna's couch for 2 months. During the day, I worked at the gallery. At night, I lay awake and replayed every moment of the relationship, looking for the point where I'd lost myself, trying to figure out how I'd become someone who accepted so little. The list in my notes app haunted me. I'd scroll through it, adding up the numbers. Over 3 years, I'd paid Daniel approximately $21,600 in rent for an apartment I had no legal right to. I bought groceries, furniture, gifts for his family. I'd turned down opportunities, canceled studio time, made myself smaller until I almost disappeared, and he'd replaced me in less than a week. But here's what I didn't know yet, what I couldn't see while I was lying on Jenna's couch feeling like my life was over. That breaking point was actually a breaking open. 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a call from the gallery owner, Marcus. He'd seen some of my older work, the pieces I'd made before Daniel, before I started making myself acceptable. I want to see more like this, Marcus said. The raw stuff, the angry stuff, the real stuff. I don't really make that anymore. Why not? I didn't have an end? Answer. Or I had too many answers, because Daniel didn't like it, because it took up too much space, because I'd learned to make myself small and my art had shrunk with me. Start again, Marcus said. I'll give you a show if you can fill the gallery. 18 months. Can you do it? I looked around Jenna's apartment at my suitcase still, half unpacked in the corner at the life I'd been living that had led me here. Yes, I said. I had no idea how. I just knew I had to. That night I went back to the storage unit where Daniel had made me move my sculptures. I hadn't been there since the day he'd helped me load everything in, complaining the whole time about how much stuff I had, how expensive storage was, how maybe I should just get rid of some of it. I opened the unit and looked at 3 years of work, packed away in boxes, gathering dust, and then I looked at the boxes themselves. The furniture I'd bought for our apartment that Daniel had said didn't fit his aesthetic. The coffee table with the ring stains from my water glasses. The bookshelf I'd assembled myself because he was too busy. The lamp I'd found at a flea market that he said was tacky. All the pieces of a life I'd tried to build with someone who was building his. Own life around me, not with me. I didn't take the sculptures out of the boxes. Instead, I started taking the furniture apart. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to destroy something you once loved, to create something better, stay with me. Because what I built from those broken pieces became the exhibition that would change my life, and Daniel was about to walk right into the middle of it. For the next 18 months, I lived two lives. There was the life people saw Maya, working at the gallery, living with her, best friends, slowly getting over a bad breakup, quiet, healing, moving on. And then there was the real life, the one happening in the studio space Marcus let me use in the gallery basement after hours. The life where I was taking everything Daniel and I had been and transforming it into something he could never touch. The coffee table became the skeleton of a sculpture about bearing weight. I broke it down to its basic structure, then rebuilt it with steel. Reinforcements, making it strong enough to hold 1,000 pounds. On top, I placed delicate porcelain replicas of all the things Daniel used to. Put on it his laptop, his coffee cup, his feet, each one detailed and perfect. And fragile. The piece was called Load Bearing. The bookshelf became a wall installation. I cut it into sections, arranged them in a pattern that looked random until you stepped back and saw it spelled out words. His name on the lease. My money in the rent. His space. My silence. I filled the shelves with books I'd bought and he'd never read. Their pages carved out to hold small sculptures of all the things I'd given up. Studio time. Gallery visits. My own voice. Every piece I made was an exorcism. Every cut, every weld, every brushstroke was me taking back something he'd taken. From me. Jenna would come down to the studio sometimes, watch me work. "This is incredible," she'd say. And also slightly terrifying. "Good," I'd say, not looking up from the photograph I was burning with careful precision. Just the edges, just enough to destroy his face while leaving mine intact. It should be. I didn't tell anyone what I was really doing. When people asked about my work, I said I was exploring themes of reconstruction and identity, which was true. I just didn't mention that I was reconstructing my identity from the ruins of a relationship that had nearly destroyed me. Marcus would check in every few weeks. "How's it coming?" "Good. I need more time." "You have time? Take what you need." What I needed was to make sure that every single piece was perfect. That when Daniel saw it, if he ever saw it, he would understand exactly what he'd done. Not in a way that would let him dismiss it, not in a way he could argue with. Just the truth, transformed into art. I started running again, something I'd stopped doing when I was with Daniel. Because he said it was boring, because he wanted me home in the mornings. I'd run through Prospect Park at dawn, watching the city wake up, feeling my body get stronger, feeling myself get stronger. I said no to things. Small things at first. When my mother asked me to come home for a weekend I needed for work, I said no. When a friend asked me to help her move on a day I'd blocked for studio time, I said no. Each no felt like learning a new language, awkward and uncomfortable and absolutely necessary. The first no was the hardest. My mother called me, upset, saying I was being selfish. I almost caved, almost apologized, almost got on the train, but I didn't. I stayed in the studio and worked, and nothing bad happened. My mother got over it. The world didn't end. I learned that no was a complete sentence. The second no was easier. The third was almost empowering. By month 6, I had 12 pieces finished. By month 12, I had 23. By month 15, I had enough for a full exhibition, and Marcus started talking. About dates, about promotion, about critics he wanted to invite. "This is going to be big," he said, looking at the photographs I'd reconstructed. "With gold leaf. This is the kind of work that gets attention. I didn't want attention. Or I thought I didn't. What I wanted was to take all the pain Daniel had caused and transform it into something beautiful, something valuable, something mine. But attention came anyway. Marcus sent images to a few critics he knew. Word spread. By month 16, I had a profile in a local art magazine. By month 17, a gallery in Manhattan was asking about future work. And through all of it, I didn't contact Daniel, didn't check his social media. Didn't ask mutual friends about him. I was living in a Daniel-free world, and it felt like breathing after being underwater for 3 years. Jenna asked me once if I was over him. I don't know, I said. I don't think about him anymore. Does that count? That absolutely counts. But I was lying. Not to Jenna, to myself. Because I did think about him. Every time I made a new piece, I thought about him. Every time I transformed something we'd shared into something that was only mine, I thought about him. The difference was, I wasn't thinking about him with longing or regret. I was thinking about him with clarity. I could see the relationship for what it had been, a slow erosion of self, disguised as love. I could see how I participated in my own diminishment, how I'd made myself smaller to fit into his life, and I could see that I was never going back to that size again. The exhibition was scheduled for a Friday in April, exactly 2 years' end. 3 months after Daniel had packed my sculptures into liquor store boxes. The week before the opening, I barely slept. I was in the gallery every day, working with Marcus to arrange the pieces, to get the lighting right, to make sure every detail was perfect. The centerpiece was the sculpture made from the coffee table, load-bearing. We placed it in the center of the gallery, lit from above so the shadows of the porcelain objects stretched across the floor. Around it, we arranged the other pieces in a spiral so viewers would walk through the exhibition in a specific order, experiencing the relationship the way I had lived it, the slow accumulation of small losses, the breaking point, the reconstruction. The final piece, the one in the back room, was the most personal. I'd taken all of Daniel's old t-shirts, the ones he'd left behind, and I'd cut them into strips. Then I'd woven them into a large textile piece, a tapestry that looked abstract, until he got close and saw the words embroidered throughout. Every excuse he'd ever made, every dismissal, every time he'd made me feel small. I'm supporting you by being here. You're being too sensitive. Ashley's just a co-worker. My apartment, but you live here too. You're gonna break it. The piece was called His Words, My Hands, because I'd taken his words and transformed them with my hands into something he could never take back. Marcus stood in front of it for a long time during the final walkthrough. Maya, he said quietly, this is devastating. Good, I said. No, I mean, this is going to devastate people, in the best way. This is the kind of work people remember. I looked at the tapestry, at all. Those words woven together, and felt something settle in my chest. Pride, maybe. Or just the satisfaction of having survived something that was supposed to break. Me and coming out stronger. The night before the opening, Jenna helped me pick out an outfit. Black dress. Simple, elegant, the kind of thing I would have been too afraid to wear when I was with Daniel, because he would have said it was too much too. Attention-seeking too, something you look powerful, Jenna said. I feel terrified. That's the same thing sometimes. We sent out invitations to everyone on Marcus's list. Critics, collectors, other artists, friends. I didn't invite Daniel. I didn't even think about inviting Daniel. He was part of the past I'd transformed into art, not part of the future I was building. But I should have known. I should have remembered that Daniel always found a way to make things about him. The opening started at 7. By 6:45, the gallery was already filling up. People I knew, people I didn't know, all moving through the space, looking at my work, reading the descriptions, understanding the story I was telling without me having to say a word. Marcus introduced me to a critic from a major art publication. Your use of kintsugi as a metaphor for emotional reconstruction is fascinating, she said. Have you considered expanding this into a larger series? I was in the middle of answering when I felt it. That specific awareness that comes from being watched by someone who knows you. I turned, and there he was. Daniel Park, standing in the entrance of my gallery at my opening, wearing a suit I didn't recognize and an expression I knew too well. That look of casual ownership, like he had every right to be there, like my success was somehow connected to him. And next to him, the blonde woman in the dress I used to wear, Ashley. My first instinct was to leave, to walk out of my own opening, to let him have the space, to make myself small. Again. But then I looked around, at the walls with my name on them. at the people admiring my work, at the sculpture in the center of the gallery, the one made from the coffee, table he'd said I ruined, now transformed into something critics were calling powerful and essential. This was my space, my work, my story. He was just a visitor. I excused myself from the critic and walked toward the entrance where Jenna had already intercepted Daniel and Ashley. She didn't invite you, Jenna was saying, her voice low and sharp. It's a public opening, Daniel said. We saw the announcement online. I wanted to support Maya's work. Support, that word again. The word he'd used to justify his absence, his dismissal, his complete lack of actual support. It's fine, I said, appearing next to Jenna. Let them stay. Jenna looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maya, it's fine, I repeated, looking directly at Daniel. Welcome to the exhibition. He smiled, that same charming smile I used to think. Meant he was happy to see me. Maya, this is amazing. I had no idea you were working on something like this. Of course he didn't. He'd never asked. This is Ashley, he said, gesturing to the woman next to him. Ashley, this is Maya, my ex. My ex. Like I was a possession he used to own. Like our 3 years together could be summarized in 2 words. Ashley extended her hand. It's so nice to meet you. Daniel talks about you all the time. I shook her hand, noting the way she held. Onto Daniel's arm, the way she looked at him for approval before speaking. I recognized that posture. I'd lived in that posture for 3 years. Enjoy the exhibition, I said, and walked away. I could feel Daniel watching me as I moved through the gallery, talking to guests, accepting compliments, being present in my own success. Every few minutes I'd catch sight of him, moving from piece to piece, reading. The descriptions, his expression shifting from curiosity to confusion to something that might have been recognition. He stalked in front of load-bearing for a long time. Long enough that people started to notice. Long enough that I saw Ashley tug on his arm, trying to move him along, and he shook her off. He was staring at the porcelain laptop on top of the reinforced coffee table. Structure. At the description card that read, on bearing the weight of someone else's life. While your own collapses beneath you. I watched him read it. Watched him look at the coffee table, really look at it and see what it was. Made from. Watched the moment he understood. He looked up, scanning the gallery until he found me. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw it. The realization, the understanding that every piece in this exhibition was about him, about us, about what he'd done. And I smiled, not a friendly smile, not a forgiving smile. Just a smile that said, yes, you're right. This is all about you. And there's nothing you can do about it. He walked toward me, Ashley trailing behind him, looking confused and uncomfortable. Maya, can we talk? I'm working, I said. This is my opening. I know, but I need to understand. Is this all? He gestured around the gallery. Is this all about me? It's about my experience, I said. If you see yourself in it, that's your interpretation. The coffee table. That's our coffee table. That's my coffee table. The one I bought. The one you said I ruined. The one you left in storage. I didn't know you were going to. Going to what? Make art from it. Transform it into something valuable. That's what I do, Daniel. I'm an artist. You knew that when you met me. You just didn't think it mattered. Ashley was looking between us, clearly, trying to understand the conversation. Daniel, maybe we should go. No, I want to see the rest, he said, not looking at her. And I realized something in that moment. He wasn't here to support me. He was here because he couldn't stand the idea that I'd moved on, that I'd taken our relationship and made it into something that didn't include him, that I'd succeeded without him. He wanted to be part of my story. He wanted to matter. The exhibition continues in the back room, I said. But I should warn you, it gets more personal. He went anyway. Of course he did. Ashley followed, reluctant, and I watched them disappear into the back room. Where his words my hands was displayed, Jenna appeared at my elbow. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I said, and I meant it. We heard the moment Daniel saw the tapestry. Not a sound exactly. More like the absence of sound. The way the air changes when someone stops breathing. He came out of the back room 3 minutes later, pale, with Ashley pulling on. His arm, saying, "We should really go. This is weird, Daniel. Let's just go." He walked straight to me. "You had no right." "I had every right." "Those are your words, and just made them visible. This is vindictive. This is you trying to make me look bad. This is me telling my truth. If that makes you look bad, maybe you should think about why." People were starting to watch. The gallery had gone quiet, everyone pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. "I supported you," Daniel said, his voice rising. "I let you live with me. I let you use my space for your work. I was there for you. You charged me rent for an apartment I had no legal right to. You packed my sculptures into liquor store boxes so your new girlfriend could move in. You told me I was going to break my own work. That's not support, Daniel. That's exploitation. That's not, I didn't, you're twisting everything." "I'm not twisting anything. I'm just not pretending anymore." Ashley was pulling harder on his arm now. "Daniel, everyone's staring. Let's go." He looked around the gallery, at all the people watching, at the walls covered in my work, at the evidence of my success that had nothing to do with him. "You've changed," he said finally. "Yes," I said. "I have. I got better." They left. Daniel walking fast, Ashley practically running to keep up, both of them, disappearing into the street outside. The gallery stayed quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the whole room erupted in applause, and I stood there, in the center of my exhibition, surrounded by the pieces I'd made from the ruins of a relationship. That was supposed to break me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Whole. The rest of the opening was a blur. People wanted to talk to me, to buy pieces, to commission work. The critic from the major publication asked for an interview. Marcus was beaming, already talking about future shows, about galleries and other cities that would want to see this work. But all he could think about was the look on Daniel's face when he realized what I'd done. Not anger exactly, something deeper. The realization that he'd lost something he didn't know he valued until it was gone. Not me. He didn't value me. He probably still didn't. But he valued the idea of me. The version of me that made him feel important, that made him feel like a good person for supporting an artist. And that version was gone, transformed into something he could never control. By 10 o'clock, the gallery was starting to empty. Jen and I stood in front of load-bearing, looking at the sculpture that had started everything. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Tired," I said. "And relieved. And like I just ran a marathon." "You kind of did. An emotional marathon. Do you think I was too harsh?" "With Daniel?" Jenna turned to look at me. "Maya, you turned your pain into art. You didn't call him names. You didn't trash him on social media. You didn't do anything except tell your truth. If he can't handle that, that's his problem. His words, my hands," I said, reading the title of the tapestry visible through the doorway to the back room. "Exactly. You took what he gave you and made it into something beautiful. That's not harsh, that's alchemy." We locked up the gallery at 11. Marcus hugged me at the door, told me to get some sleep, that we'd talk in the yard. Mourning about all the interest the show had generated, I walked home with Jenna through the quiet streets, feeling the cool April air on my skin, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Do you think he'll come back?" Jenna asked. "I don't know," I said. "I don't think it matters." But I was wrong. It did matter. Just not in the way I expected. Daniel texted me at 2 in the morning. I was lying in bed, still too wired from the opening to sleep, scrolling through messages from people who'd been at the gallery. "Congratulations. Amazing work. So powerful. So brave." Then his name appeared on my screen and my stomach dropped even though I'd told myself I was over him. "We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long time. The old Maya would have responded immediately. Would have apologized for making him uncomfortable. Would have explained, justified, made herself smaller to ease his discomfort. The new Maya turned off her phone and went to sleep. I woke up to 17 more messages. "Maya, please. I just want to understand. You made me look like a villain." "That's not how. It happened. You're remembering it wrong. I was good to you. I loved you." How can you do this to me? After everything I did for you. This is cruel. You owe me a conversation. At least give me a chance to explain. Ashley is upset. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I thought you were better than this. Call me. Please. Maya. I read through them once, feeling that old, familiar pull. The urge to fix things, to make him feel better, to take responsibility for his emotions. Then I deleted them all and blocked his number. Jenna made coffee while I told her about the messages. He said I owe him a conversation. You don't owe him anything, Jenna said. You already gave him 3 years. You don't owe him another second. He said I'm remembering it wrong. Of course he did. Because if you're remembering it right, then he has to face what he did. It's easier to make you the villain. I knew she was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two different things. Part of me still wanted to respond, to explain, to make him understand. Don't, Jenna said, reading my face. Don't give him that power. You told your story. He doesn't get to edit it. The exhibition ran for 6 weeks. In that time, I sold 12 pieces. 12 pieces that I'd made from the ruins of my relationship with Daniel, bought by strangers who saw value in my pain transformed into art. Load bearings sold for $8,000 to a collector in Manhattan. The bookshelf installation sold for $6,500. The photograph series sold individually, $500 to $1,200 each. By the end of the run, I'd made $43,000. More money than I'd ever made from my art. More money than I'd paid Daniel in rent over 3 years. The universe had a sense of humor. Marcus called me into his office the day after the exhibition closed. I have news, he said. Good news and complicated news. Start with good. The Whitney wants to talk to you about including load-bearing in their next contemporary exhibition. That's huge, Maya. That's career-making huge. I sat down. What's the complicated news? Daniel's been calling the gallery multiple times a day. He wants to buy pieces from the exhibition. They're sold. I know. I told him that. He's offering above asking price. He wants the coffee table sculpture specifically. He's offering $12,000. I laughed. Actually laughed. He wants to buy back the coffee table he said I ruined. Apparently. I told him it's sold and not available, but he keeps calling. He's also been leaving reviews online, saying the exhibition is exploitative and unethical. The laughter died. He's what? Marcus turned his computer screen toward me. There, on every review site he could find, were 1-star reviews from Daniel. Park, this exhibition is a vindictive attack on a private relationship. The artist has no respect for privacy or consent. She's profiting from someone else's pain. Unethical and exploitative. Someone else's pain, I read aloud. He thinks he's the victim here. Ignore it, Marcus said. Everyone who was at the opening knows the truth. And honestly, the controversy is probably good for your career. People love a story. But I didn't want controversy. I wanted to move on. I wanted Daniel to be a chapter in my past, not a constant presence in my present. I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. 2 weeks after the exhibition closed, I was at a coffee shop in Brooklyn working on sketches for a new series when Ashley walked in. She saw me immediately. I watched her face cycle through emotions, confusion, recognition, decision. Then she walked over to my table. Can I sit? It's a free country. She sat, clutching her coffee cup like a shield. Up close, I could see she was younger than I'd thought. 24, maybe 25. She looked tired. I'm not here to yell at you, she said. I just want to understand. Understand what? If it was really like that. The way you showed it in your art. If he really did those things. I looked at her, this woman who'd moved into my apartment, my studio, my life, and saw myself 3 years ago. Eager to believe the best. Willing to ignore the red flags. Already making herself smaller. Why are you asking me? I said. You're with him. You should know what he's like. He says you're lying, that you're exaggerating, that the relationship wasn't like that. And you believe him? She was quiet. For a long moment. I want to believe him. But then I think about there are these little things. The way he talks about his ex before you, The way he talks about his coworkers. The way he talks about me sometimes like I'm lucky to be with him. You are. Lucky, I said, echoing what I knew Daniel had told her. He's successful. He's smart. He's going places. You should be grateful he chose you. Her eyes widened. How did you? Because he said the same things to me, word for word. It's a script, Ashley. And you're playing the same role I played. But he loves me. Maybe he does. In his way. But his way means you make yourself smaller so he can feel bigger. His way means your name isn't on the lease. Your work isn't as important as his work. Your time is flexible. His time is sacred. His way means you pay half the rent but have no legal rights. You rearrange your life for his convenience. You learn not to expect things. She was crying now, quiet tears running down. Her face. I thought I was different. I thought with me it would be different. I thought that too. Every woman he dates thinks that. But the problem isn't us. It's him. And he won't change until he has to. What do I do? That's not my question to answer. But I'll tell you what I did. I left. I rebuilt. I turned everything he took from me into something he could never touch. And now I'm free. She wiped her eyes. He's been obsessed with you since the opening. He talks about you constantly. About how you betrayed him. About how you made him look bad. About how he needs to fix his reputation. That's not about me, I said. That's about him not being able to control the narrative anymore. He wants to. Sue you. For defamation or something. He's been talking to lawyers. My blood went cold. On what grounds? I don't know. I don't think he knows. He just keeps saying you can't do this to him. You can't tell people these things. You're ruining his reputation. I didn't use his name. I didn't identify him. I just told my story. I know. I told him that. He doesn't care. He just wants to make you stop. I called Marcus as soon as Ashley left. Daniel's threatening to sue. On what grounds? I don't know. Defamation, maybe? Ashley said he's talking to lawyers. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Maya, you didn't use his name. You didn't identify him in any way. You made art about your experience. That's protected speech. He has no case, but he could still sue. Even if he loses, it would cost money, time, stress. Let him try. I'll connect you with the gallery's lawyer, but honestly, I think he's bluffing. He's embarrassed and he's lashing out. Men like that always do. But I couldn't shake the anxiety. For 3 days, I jumped every time my phone rang. I checked my email obsessively, expecting legal documents. I couldn't work, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop imagining worst-case scenarios. On the 4th day, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, Apology, Maya. This is Daniel. I'm emailing because you blocked my number. I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how things ended. I'm sorry for not seeing how my actions affected you. I'm sorry for the reviews I left. I was angry and hurt and I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm not going to sue you. I was just upset. Your art is powerful and I understand now why you needed to make it. I hope you can forgive me someday. I hope we can be friends. I'm working on being better. Ashley and I are in couples therapy. I'm learning a lot about myself. I think you'd be proud of the work I'm doing. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry and I wish you the best. Daniel. I read it 3 times, feeling my emotions shift with each reading. The first time, I felt relief. He wasn't going to sue. The threat was over. The second time, I felt anger. The apology was all about him, his feelings, his growth, his therapy. Even his apology centered himself. The third time, I felt nothing. Just a distant recognition that this was exactly who he'd always been. Someone who could hurt you and then expect you to celebrate his journey toward being slightly less hurtful. I didn't respond. I just added his email to my blocked list and went back to work. 6 months after the opening, I was in my new studio, a space I'd rented. With money from the exhibition sales, working on a new series about growth and transformation when Jenna called. Have you seen Daniel's Instagram? I don't follow him. I know, but you need to see this. She sent me a screenshot. Daniel smiling at the camera with a long caption about personal growth and accountability. I've been doing a lot of work on myself lately. Therapy, self-reflection, really examining my patterns and relationships. I've realized that I haven't always been the partner I should have been. I've taken people for granted. I've centered my own needs without considering others. I've been selfish in ways I didn't recognize at the time. I'm sharing this because I think it's important to be honest about our flaws and our growth. If I've hurt you, I'm sorry. I'm working every day to be better, to be the kind of person who lifts others up instead of holding them down. It's a journey, but I'm committed to it. The post had hundreds of likes, comments praising his vulnerability, his honesty, his growth. He's using your story, Jenna said. He's taking credit for learning from what he did to you without actually acknowledging what he did. She was right. He found a way to make even his apology about him, to turn his bad behavior into a narrative of personal growth that made him look good. Do you want me to comment? Jenna asked. I will absolutely comment. No, I said. Let him have it. Let him tell whatever story he needs to tell. I've already told mine. You're better than me. I'm just tired. I don't want to spend any more energy on Daniel Park. He's not worth it. And I meant it. For the first time since the opening, I genuinely didn't care what Daniel was, doing or saying or posting. He was a character in a story I'd already finished writing. But the universe wasn't done with us yet. 8 months after the opening, I got an invitation to speak on a panel about art and personal narrative at a gallery in Manhattan. It was a big deal, the kind of opportunity that could lead to more. Opportunities, more visibility, more career growth. I said yes immediately. The day of the panel, I arrived early, nervous and excited. The gallery was beautiful, all white walls and natural light. There were 4 chairs set up on a small stage with a moderator's podium to the side. I was talking to the moderator, going over the format, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Maya Chen? I'm such a fan of your work. I turned around and there was Ashley. But not the Ashley I'd met in the coffee shop 8 months ago. This Ashley had shorter hair, more confident posture, and was wearing a name tag. That said gallery assistant. Ashley? I work here now, she said, smiling. I left Daniel 4 months ago, moved out, got my own place, got this job. Your exhibition, our conversation, it made me realize I deserved better. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. I wanted to thank you for being honest with me, for showing me what was possible. I'm back in school now, finishing my degree. I'm not making myself small anymore. We talked for a few more minutes before the panel started. She told me about leaving, about Daniel's reaction, about how he'd tried to convince her she was making a mistake, that she was throwing away a good thing, that she'd regret it. But I don't regret it, she said. Not for a second. I'm happier now than I've been in 2 years. The panel went well. I talked about using personal experience in art, about the ethics of storytelling, about transformation and healing. The audience asked thoughtful questions. Other panelists shared their own experiences. Afterward, during the reception, a woman approached me, mid-30s, professional, carrying a glass of wine and a determined expression. Maya Chen, I'm Rebecca Park, Daniel's sister. My stomach dropped. Oh, I wanted to meet you. I saw your exhibition. I read the reviews. I heard Daniel's version of events. And I wanted you to know that I believe you. You do? I've watched my brother do this to every woman he's dated since college. He finds someone talented, someone kind, someone who makes him look good. He takes and takes until there's nothing left. Then he moves on and tells everyone she was crazy, she was difficult, she was. The problem, I've watched it happen 5 times. You're the first one who fought back. I didn't fight back. I just told my story. That's fighting back. That's the bravest thing you could have done. And I wanted you to know that not everyone in his family thinks he's the victim. Here, some of us know exactly who he is. She handed me her card. If you ever want to talk, or if he ever bothers you again, call me. I'm a lawyer. I'll handle it. I took the card, feeling something shift in my chest. Validation, maybe. Or just the relief of being believed by someone who knew Daniel, who'd seen his patterns, who understood. Thank you, I said. No thank you. For showing me that someone could stand up to him and survive. My daughter is 15. I'm going to make sure she sees your work. I want her to know what it looks like to refuse to be small. That night, I sat in my studio looking at the new pieces I'd been working on. They were different from the exhibition pieces, lighter, more hopeful, about growth instead of destruction, about building instead of breaking. I thought about Daniel, about Ashley, about Rebecca, about all the ways our stories had intersected and diverged. I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago, paying rent for an apartment. I had no legal right to, making myself smaller to fit into someone else's life. I didn't miss her, but I was grateful to her. For surviving, for keeping that list in her notes app, for leaving, for transforming her pain into something beautiful. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, Maya, this is Ashley. I got your number from the gallery directory. Hope that's okay. I just wanted to say thank you again for today. And I wanted you to know, Daniel's been dating someone new. Her name is Christina. She's 23. I saw them at a coffee shop last week. She was talking about moving in with him. I wanted to tell her, to warn her, but I didn't know if that was my place. What do you think I should do?" I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about Christina, 23 years old, about to make the same. Mistakes I'd made. About to pay rent for an apartment she'd have no legal right to. About to learn to make herself small. Part of me wanted to find her, to warn her, to save her from what was coming. But I knew I couldn't. Everyone has to make their own choices, their own mistakes, their own journey. I couldn't save Christina any more than anyone could have saved me 3 years ago. What I could do was keep telling my story, keep making my art, keep being visible proof that you could survive someone like Daniel and come out stronger. I texted Ashley back. It's not our job to save her, but it is our job to be here when she's ready to save herself. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep being visible. Keep being proof that leaving is possible. That's enough. She responded immediately. "You're right. Thank you. For everything." I put my phone down and went back to work. There was a new piece forming in my mind, something about the women who came before and the women who came after, about how we're all connected by the men, who tried to make us small and the strength we found in refusing to stay that way. But that was a piece for another day. Tonight, I just wanted to work, to create, to exist in this space I built for myself, with my name on the lease and my art on the walls and my life entirely my own. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to be completely free of someone who once defined you, I can tell you it feels like coming home to yourself. It feels like breathing. It feels like standing in your own studio at midnight, covered in paint, exhausted and happy and whole. It feels like winning. 1 year after the exhibition, I was invited to give a talk at an art school in Boston. The topic was transforming personal narrative into universal art, and I almost said no. I'd been saying no to a lot of speaking requests. Every time I talked about the exhibition, I had to talk about Daniel, and I was tired of giving him space in my life, even as a cautionary tale. But this was different. This was talking to young artists, people just starting out, people who might be, in relationships like the one I'd escaped and didn't know they needed to escape. Yet, so I said yes. The auditorium was packed. Mostly students, some faculty, a few people from the local art community. I stood at the podium, looking out at all those faces, and felt that familiar flutter of nerves. "My name is Maya Chen," I began, "and 2 years ago, I made an exhibition about the worst relationship of my life. Tonight, I want to talk about why that was the best decision I ever made." I told them the story. Not all of it, not every detail, but the shape of it. The slow erosion of self, the breaking point, the decision to transform pain into art, the opening night when Daniel walked in and realized what I'd done. The question I get asked most often, I said, is whether I regret it, whether I regret being so public about something so private, whether I regret hurting Daniel's feelings, whether I wish I'd been kinder, gentler, more forgiving. I paused, looking out at the audience, and my answer is always the same. I don't regret telling my truth. But I do regret how long I waited to tell it. After the talk, during the cue end, a young woman in the third row raised her hand. "How did you know when it was time to leave?" "I didn't," I said honestly. "I didn't wake up one day and decide to leave. It was more like one day I realized I'd already left in my head and my body. Just needed to catch up. The relationship was over long before I moved out. I just didn't know it yet. Another hint. What if he still loved them? What if you know it's bad, but you can't stop loving them? Love isn't enough. I said, I love Daniel. I probably still love some version of him, the version I thought he was. But love doesn't mean you have to stay. Love doesn't mean you have to make yourself small. Love doesn't mean you have to accept less than you deserve. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave. A man in the back. Do you think he learned anything? Do you think he changed? I thought about Daniel's Instagram post. About his performance of growth. About Christina, the new girlfriend, probably learning right now to make herself small. I don't know, I said. I hope so, but that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to myself, to my work, to my healing. His growth is his job, not mine. After the talk, students lined up to speak. With me. They told me their stories. The boyfriend who criticized their work. The girlfriend who made them feel guilty for spending time in the studio. The partner who said they were supportive but never showed up. The relationship that felt like drowning, but they didn't know how to swim to. Sure, I listened to each one, and I saw myself in every story. The same patterns, the same excuses, the same slow disappearing. What do I do? They asked over and over. How do I leave? One step at a time, I told them. One boundary at a time. One no at a time. You don't have to leave today. You just have to start believing you deserve better. The leaving will follow. A young woman waited until everyone else had gone. She was crying before she even started speaking. I'm living with my boyfriend, she said. His name is on the lease. I pay half the rent. He says I'm lucky he lets me stay there. He says my art is a hobby, not a real career. He says I should be grateful he supports me, and I am grateful. But I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being grateful for the bare minimum. I took her hands. Listen to me. You are not lucky. You are paying rent. That's not a gift. That's a transaction. Your art is not a hobby. It's your work, your passion, your purpose. And you don't owe anyone gratitude for treating you like you matter. That should be the baseline, not the goal. But where would I go? I don't. No, but I know you'll figure it out. Because you're already asking the question. That's the first step. That's the hardest step. Everything else is just logistics. She hugged me, still crying, and I felt the weight of her hope and fear and determination. I felt the responsibility of being someone's proof that leaving was possible. The next morning, I woke up to an email from the young woman. She'd sent it at 4 a.m. I couldn't sleep after your talk. I stayed up making a list of everything I've paid for in the last year. Rent, groceries, utilities, furniture, his car insurance, because he said he was. Short on cash, it's over $18,000. I have the receipts. I have the bank statements. I'm looking at apartments today. Thank you for showing me I'm not crazy. Thank you for showing me I deserve better. Thank you for leaving first so I could see it was possible. I read the email. 3 times, crying by the end. This was why I'd said yes to the talk. This was why I kept telling the story even when I was tired of telling it. Because somewhere, someone needed to hear it. Someone needed permission to leave. Someone needed proof that survival was possible. I wrote back, "You're not crazy. You're not ungrateful. You're not asking for too much. You're just asking for what you deserve. I'm proud of you. Keep me updated. You've got this." That same week, I got a call from a producer at a podcast about art and culture. They wanted to do an episode about my work, about the exhibition, about using personal narrative in art. We'd also like to invite Daniel to participate, the producer said, to get both perspectives on the relationship and the art that came from it. No, I said immediately. It would make for a really compelling episode. The 2 sides of the story. There aren't 2 sides. There's my experience and his denial of my experience. I'm not interested in debating my own life. He's been very vocal about wanting to share his perspective. He says you've only told one side. I told my side. That's the only side I have the right to tell. If he wants to tell his side, he can make his own art. But I'm not giving him a platform to rewrite my history. The producer was quiet. For a moment, I respect that. Would you be willing to do the episode without him? Yes, but only if you agree not to contact him at all. I don't want this to turn into a he said, she said. I want to talk about the art, the process, the transformation. Not about Daniel. Deal. The episode aired 3 weeks later. I talked about the exhibition, about the decision to use personal objects, about the response from viewers. I talked about the women who'd reached out to me, who'd seen themselves in my story, who'd found the courage to leave their own difficult relationships. I didn't mention Daniel by name. I referred to him as my ex and focused on the patterns, not the person. The universal, not the specific. The episode got over 100,000 downloads in the first week. My inbox flooded with messages, gallery owners wanting to show my work, collectors wanting to buy pieces, other artists wanting to collaborate, and women, so many women, telling me their stories, thanking me for telling mine, asking for advice, for hope, for proof that life got better after leaving. I tried to respond to every message. It took hours, days, but I did it. Because I remembered what it felt like to be drowning in a relationship and desperate for someone to throw you a rope. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Sarah, 42 years old, married for 15 years. I've been listening to your podcast episode on repeat. I've been married to a man who makes me feel small for 15 years. I have 3 kids. I have no income of my own. I have nowhere to go. But I'm starting to believe I deserve better. I'm starting to make a plan. Thank you for showing me it's possible. Even if it takes me 5 years to leave, at least now I know I can. I wrote. Back immediately. 5 years is better than forever. One step at a time. You deserve better. Your kids deserve to see you happy. You've got this. 18 months after the exhibition, Marcus called me. With news. The Whitney wants to acquire load bearing for their permanent collection. I sat down. Their permanent collection? Your work will be in the Whitney Museum. Forever. This is huge, Maya. This is legacy level huge. The Whitney offered $35,000 for the piece. The collector who'd bought it for $8,000 agreed to sell it back to me, so I could sell it to the museum. I made a profit of $27,000 on a sculpture I'd made from a coffee table Daniel said I'd ruined. The universe really did have a sense of humor. The acquisition came with a request for an artist statement, something that would be displayed next to the piece in the museum. I spent weeks writing and rewriting it, trying to capture what the piece meant, what the exhibition had meant, what the whole experience had taught me. Finally, I settled on this. Load bearing explores the invisible labor of emotional and financial support in unequal relationships. The structure is built from a coffee table I purchased during a 3-year relationship in which I paid half the rent for an apartment I had no legal right. 2. The table was criticized, devalued, and eventually discarded. In transforming it into the sculpture, I reinforced its structure to hold exponentially more weight than it was originally designed to bear, a metaphor for the strength we develop when we're forced to carry more than our share. The delicate porcelain objects on top represent the fragility of the life built on that unequal foundation. The piece asks, what happens when the person bearing the weight finally puts it down? The statement was approved. The piece was installed. And one Tuesday in October, exactly 3 years after Daniel had packed my sculptures into liquor store boxes, I stood in the Whitney Museum and looked at my work on the wall with a placard that said permanent collection. Jenna stood next to me, crying. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, I said. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to. We stood there for a long time, looking at the sculpture, watching other people look at it, reading their reactions. Some people stood for a few seconds and moved on. Others stood for minutes reading the statement, studying the piece, understanding the story. A woman about my age stood in front of it for almost 10 minutes. I watched her read the statement 3 times, watched her wipe her eyes, watched her take a photo of the placard. She turned and saw me watching. Did you make this? I did. Thank you, she said. I needed to see this today. Are you okay? I will be. I'm leaving my husband next week. I've been planning it for 6 months. I have an apartment. I have a job. I have a plan. But I was scared. And then I saw this, and I realized If you can turn your pain into something. This beautiful, I can turn mine into freedom. She walked away before I could respond, disappearing into the museum crowd, and I felt that familiar weight of responsibility and hope. My story was helping people. My art was giving people permission to save themselves. 2 years after the exhibition, I was working in my studio when I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, you were right. Maya, this is Christina. You don't know me, but I was Daniel's girlfriend after Ashley. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. I moved in with him 8 months ago. My name isn't on the lease. I pay half the rent. He says I'm lucky he lets me live there. He criticizes my work. He makes me feel small. Last week, he started talking about a new coworker, someone really talented, who's going places. Her name is Emma. I know what's coming. I'm moving out next week. I have an apartment lined up. I have a plan. I saw your exhibition online. I read the articles. I listened to the podcast. And I realized I was living your story. But I don't have to finish it the way you did. I can leave now, before it gets worse. Thank you for being brave enough to tell your truth. It saved me years of pain. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. I read the email 5 times, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Sadness that Daniel was still doing this, still finding young women to make. Small. Relief that Christina was leaving before it got worse. Pride that my story had helped her see the pattern. I wrote back, Christina, I'm so proud of you for leaving. You're doing the right thing. You deserve better. You deserve a relationship where you don't have to be grateful for the bare minimum, where your name is on the lease and your work is respected and you never have to. Make yourself small. I'm happy. I'm successful. I'm free. And you will be too. One step at a time. You've got this. She responded an hour later. Thank you. I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm going to make art about this someday. When I'm ready, when it doesn't hurt anymore. You showed me that's possible. It's possible, I wrote back. Take your time. Heal first. The art will come when you're ready. That night, I told Jenna about Christina's email. He's still doing it, Jenna said, angry. He's still finding women to exploit. I know, but they're leaving faster now. Ashley left after 2 years. Christina's leaving after 8 months. Maybe the next one will leave after 8 weeks. Maybe eventually they'll see the pattern before they even move in. You're being very zen about this. I'm not zen. I'm done being angry. Anger kept me going for a while. It fueled the exhibition. But I don't want to live there anymore. I want to live here, in this life I've built, doing this work I love. Daniel is a footnote in my story now. I'm not going to let him be more than that. When did you get so wise? When I stopped making myself small. 3 years after the exhibition, I had my second solo show. This one wasn't about Daniel. It wasn't about pain or breaking or reconstruction. It was about growth. About the life I'd built after leaving. About the women who'd reached out to me and the community we'd form. About strength and resilience and the beauty of becoming whole. The centerpiece was a sculpture called After. It was made from seeds and soil. And living plants. A growing, changing piece that would look different every time someone saw it. The description read, after the breaking comes the growing. After the pain comes the strength. After the ending comes the beginning. This piece will never be finished. It will continue to grow and change and evolve just like we do. The opening was packed. Critics, collectors, other artists, friends, and women. So many women who'd reached out to me over the years, who'd left their own difficult relationships, who'd found their own strength. Ashley was there, confident and happy, with a new girlfriend who looked at her like she hung the moon. Rebecca, Daniel's sister, was there with her daughter, the 15-year-old who was now 17 and talking about studying art in college. Sarah, the woman who'd been married for 15 years, was there with her 3 kids, divorced now and working as a teacher, building her own life. And Christina was there with a portfolio of her own work, sketches and paintings about leaving and healing and becoming whole. I'm applying to grad school, she told me, for my MFA. I want to do what you did. Turn my pain into something beautiful. You will, I said. You already are. Daniel wasn't there. I didn't invite him. I didn't think about him. He was part of my past, and this exhibition was about my future. But someone did ask about him during the Q&A after the opening. Your first exhibition was about a difficult relationship. This one seems to be about moving beyond that. Do you ever think about your ex? Do you wonder if he's changed? I thought about it for a moment. About Daniel's Instagram posts about growth, about Christina's email, about Emma, whoever she was, probably learning right now to make herself small. I hope he's changed, I said finally. I genuinely hope he's learned and grown and become a better person. But that's not my story to tell anymore. My story is about what happened after, about the life I built from the ruins, about the women who found strength in my story and built their own lives, about the art that came from the pain. That's the story I want to tell now. The audience applauded. The exhibition was a success. And I went home that night to my apartment, my name on the lease, my art on walls, my life entirely my own, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace, not the absence of pain, not the erasure of the past, just the quiet satisfaction of having survived something that was supposed to break me and coming out stronger, of having turned my worst experience into my best work, of having helped other people find their own strength. If you've ever wondered what happens when you finally stop making yourself small, I can tell you, you grow, you expand, you take up space. You create, you thrive. You become the person you were always meant to be before someone convinced you to be less. And sometimes, late at night, when you're working in your studio on a new piece, you think about the person you used to be, the one who paid rent for an apartment she had no legal right to, the one who made herself small to fit into someone else's life, the one who thought love meant sacrifice instead of partnership, and you feel grateful to her for surviving, for leaving, for keeping that list in her notes app, for having the courage to transform her pain into art. Because without her, you wouldn't be here in this studio, with your name on the lease, making art that matters, living a life that's entirely your own. That's the real revenge. Not making someone suffer, not proving them wrong, just living well. Just being happy, just refusing to stay small. That's the real victory. 4 years after the exhibition, I was invited to speak at a conference about women in the arts, the keynote speech, the biggest stage I'd ever been on. 2,000 people in the audience. I almost said no. Not because I was scared of public speaking anymore. I'd done enough talks that. The nerves had faded to a manageable hum. But because the topic they wanted me to address was turning personal pain into public art, ethics, and empowerment, which meant talking about Daniel. Again, I was tired of talking about Daniel. Tired of being the artist who made an exhibition about her ex. Tired of having my work reduced to a revenge story when it was so much more than that. But then I thought about all the messages I still got. Every week, sometimes every day, women telling me my story had saved them, had given them permission to leave, had shown them that survival was possible. So I said yes. The night before the speech, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about what I wanted to say. Not just about the exhibition, but about everything that came after. About the responsibility of telling your story publicly. About the cost and the reward. About the women who'd reached out and the community we built. At 3 a.m, I got up and started writing. Not the speech I planned, but the speech I needed to give. The next day, I stood on that stage, looking out at 2,000 faces, and I told them the truth. My name is Maya Chen, and 4 years ago, I made an exhibition about the worst relationship of my life. That exhibition changed my career. It got me representation, sales, museum acquisitions, speaking opportunities. Like this one. It made me successful in ways I'd never imagined. I paused, letting that sink in. And I would give all of it back if I could have those 3 years of my life. Back. If I could have skipped the pain and the diminishment and the slow erosion of self. If I could have met someone who valued me from the start instead of someone who taught me to value myself by showing me what it looked like when someone didn't. The audience was silent, listening. But I can't. None of us can. We can't skip the pain. We can't avoid the lessons. We can only decide what we do with them. And I decided to make art, to transform my experience into something that might help someone else, to turn my pain into purpose. I told them about the exhibition, about Daniel walking in and realizing what I'd done, about the women who'd reached out, about Ashley and Christina and Sarah and all the others who'd found strength in my story. But here's what I don't talk about often, I said. The cost of telling your story publicly. The way it freezes you in that moment of pain, even as you're trying to move beyond it. The way people reduce you to your trauma, to your survival, to your revenge. The way you become the woman who made art about her ex instead of just Anne. Artist. I saw people nodding, understanding. I don't regret the exhibition, but I do regret that it's become the only thing some people know about me. I've made 3 more bodies of work since then. I've explored themes of growth, community, resilience, joy. But people still want to talk about Daniel, still want to know if he's changed, still want to hear the revenge story. I took a breath. So I'm here today to tell you, yes, turn your pain into art if that's what you need to do. Yes, tell your story if it helps you heal. Yes, use your experience to help others. But also know that once you tell your story publicly, it stops being just yours. It becomes everyone's. And you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready for people to interpret it, to judge it, to use it for their own purposes. You have to be ready to be defined by your pain even as you're trying to move. Beyond it, the audience was completely still now, and you have to decide if that's worth it. For me, it was, because of the women I've helped, because of the community we've built, because of the art I've made. But it's not an easy choice. It's not a simple choice. And I want you to know that before you make it. I finished the speech and the audience stood applauding. Afterward, dozens of people came up to talk to me, to thank me for my honesty, to share their own stories, to ask for advice. One woman, probably in her 50s, waited until everyone else had gone. "I'm Daniel's mother," she said. My blood went cold. "I wanted to meet you, to apologize for my son, for what he did to you, for what he's done to every woman he's dated. I've watched him repeat the same patterns for years. I've tried to talk to him. His sister has tried, but he doesn't listen, he doesn't change, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry we raised him to think this was acceptable. I'm sorry we didn't do better. I didn't know what to say. I never expected this. Never imagined Daniel's mother would seek me out, would apologize, would acknowledge what her son had done. I saw your exhibition," she continued. "I saw every piece, I read every description, and I recognized everything. The coffee table, the bookshelf, the t-shirts. I'd been in that apartment. I'd seen you there, making yourself small, trying to fit into his life. And I didn't say anything. I didn't help you. I thought you'd work it out. I thought he'd grow up. I was wrong. It's not your fault," I said, because I didn't know what else to say. It is, partly. We taught him that his needs mattered more than other people's, that his career was more important, that women should be grateful for his attention. We didn't mean to, but we did. And I'm sorry. She handed me an envelope. "This is a check for the rent you paid. Rebecca told me how much. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to have it. I wanted you to know that someone in his family sees you, believes you, acknowledges what he did." I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $21,600, the exact amount I paid in rent over 3 years. "I can't accept this," I said. "Please, let me do this one thing. Let me acknowledge that what happened to you was wrong, that you deserved better, that my son should have been better." I looked at the check, at this woman who'd raised Daniel, but was trying to make amends for his actions, and I felt something shift, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding, that Daniel's patterns didn't come from nowhere, that he'd been taught implicitly or explicitly that this was how relationships worked, that he was the center and everyone else orbited around him. "Thank you," I said, taking the check. "I'm going to donate this to an organization that helps women leave abusive relationships. In your name, if that's okay." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "That's perfect. That's exactly what should happen." We talked for a few more minutes. She told me about trying to raise Daniel differently, about the conversations she'd tried to have, about the frustration of watching him repeat the same patterns. She told me about Emma, the new girlfriend who just moved in with him. I tried to warn her, she said, but she didn't want to hear it. She thinks she's different. She thinks it'll be different with her. They always do, I said. I did too. Will you? Would you be willing to talk to her? If she reaches out. If she reaches out, yes, but I can't seek her out. She has to be ready. She has to want to hear it. I understand. Thank you. For everything. For surviving. For making your art. For helping other women. You've done more good than you know. That night, I deposited the check and immediately transferred it to a women's shelter in Brooklyn. $21,600. Enough to house and support multiple women leaving dangerous situations. Enough to turn my pain into someone else's safety. I posted about it on social media, not mentioning Daniel or his mother by name. Just saying that I'd received restitution for past harm and was paying it. Forward, the post went viral, thousands of shares, hundreds of comments. Women sharing their own stories of leaving, of surviving, of transforming their pain into purpose. And then, 3 days later, I got a DM from an account I didn't recognize. Hi, Maya. This is Emma. I'm Daniel's girlfriend. I saw your post. I saw the amount. That's almost exactly what I've paid in rent since I moved in 6 months ago. Is that a coincidence? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. No, it's not a coincidence. That's what I paid over 3 years. You're on track to pay the same. Your name isn't on the lease, is it? No. He says it's easier this way, less paperwork. It's not easier for you. It's easier for him. It means he can ask you to leave any time and you have no legal recourse. It means you're paying for a home you have no right to. There was a long pause. Then, how did you know? Because it's the same thing he did to me, and to Ashley, and to Christina. It's a pattern. You're not different. The relationship isn't different. He's doing the same thing he always does. Another pause. I thought I was imagining it. The way he talks about my work. The way he makes me feel like I should be grateful. The way he's always talking about his new coworker, someone named Rachel. You're not imagining it. It's real. And it's going to get worse. He's going to keep taking until there's nothing left. And then he's going to replace you with Rachel and tell everyone you were though. Problem. What do I do? That's up to you. But if you want to leave, leave now, before you pay more rent, before you give up more opportunities, before you make yourself smaller. Leave while you still remember who you were before him. I'm scared. I know. I was scared too. But I left, and Ashley left, and Christina left. And we're all okay. We're more than okay. We're thriving. And you will too. Will you help me? I thought about it. About the responsibility of helping someone leave. About the time and energy it would take. About whether I wanted to be that involved in Daniel's life again even. Tangentially. But then I thought about the women who'd helped me. Jenna, who'd let me live on her couch. Marcus, who'd given me a show. Rebecca, who'd offered legal help. All the people who'd reached out and said, I believe you and you deserve better. Yes, I typed. I'll help you. Over the next 2 weeks, I helped Emma plan her exit. We found her an apartment. We calculated her finances. We made a list of everything she needed to take. We planned the day, the time, the logistics. Ashley and Christina wanted to help too. We formed a group chat, the 4 of us, women who'd all dated the same man and all escaped. We called ourselves the Survivors Club, half joking, half serious. This is wild, Christina said. We should all be enemies. We should hate each other. But instead, we're helping each other. That's because we know the truth, Ashley said. We're not each other's enemies. He is. Or not even him, really. The pattern is, the system that taught him he could treat women this way. That's what we're fighting. The day Emma moved out, we were all there. Me, Ashley, Christina, even Rebecca. We helped her pack, helped her load the truck, helped her carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs to her new apartment. Daniel came home in the middle of it. He stood in the doorway looking at all of us, his face cycling through. Emotions, confusion, recognition, anger, fear. What is this? He asked. This is Emma moving out, I said calmly. Emma, what are you doing? Who are these people? You know who we are, Ashley said. We're your exes. We're the women you made small. We're the ones who got away. This is insane. You're all insane. Emma, don't listen to them. They're bitter. They're trying to turn you against me. They're not turning me against you. Emma said, her voice steady. They're showing me the pattern I was too close to see. They're helping me leave before it gets worse. Before what gets worse. I've been good to you. I let you live here. I support your work. You charge me rent for an apartment I have no legal right. Too, Emma said. You criticize my work constantly. You make me feel like I should be grateful for the bare minimum. That's not support, that's exploitation. I can't believe this. After everything I've done for you. What have you done for me, Daniel? Emma asked. Specifically, what have you actually done? He couldn't answer. He just stood there, looking between all of us, realizing that his pattern had been exposed, that we'd all compared notes, that he couldn't gaslight his way out of this. You're all crazy, he said finally. You're all bitter and crazy, and you're going to regret this. We don't, I said. Not for a second. We're all happier now than we ever were with you. We're all thriving. We're all free. And Emma will be too. We finished loading Emma's things and left. Daniel stood in the doorway of his apartment, alone, watching us go. In the truck, driving to Emma's new place, Christina started laughing. Did you see his face? He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe we all teamed up. He thought we'd be fighting over him, Ashley said. He thought we'd see each other as competition. He didn't realize we'd see each other as allies. That's his mistake, I said. He thought he was the prize. He didn't realize we were. We helped Emma unpack, set up her new apartment, order pizza, celebrate her freedom. And sitting there, in Emma's new living room, surrounded by women who'd all survived the same man, I felt something profound. This was the real art. Not the exhibition, not the sculptures or the photographs or the tapestries. This community, this support, this transformation of pain into power, of isolation into connection, of victimhood into survival. 6 months later, Emma had her first art show. Small, local, but hers. The theme was patterns and breaking points. She'd made a series of paintings showing the same relationship from 4 different perspectives, 4 different women, all experiencing the same treatment. We all went to the opening. Me, Ashley, Christina, Rebecca, even Daniel's mother. We stood in front of Emma's paintings and saw ourselves reflected back. The same patterns, the same excuses, the same slow diminishment, but also the same strength, the same resilience, the same refusal to stay small. A journalist from a local paper interviewed Emma about the show. Your work seems to be in conversation with Maya Chen's exhibition from a few years ago. Was that an influence? Maya's work saved my life, Emma said simply. It showed me the pattern I was living in. It gave me permission to leave. The show was my way of continuing that conversation, of adding my voice to the chorus of women saying, this happened to me too, and I survived. The journalist turned to me. How does it feel to see your work inspiring other artists? It feels like the whole point, I said. I didn't make that exhibition for revenge. I made it to transform my pain into something useful, to help other women see the patterns, to show that survival is possible. Emma's work does the same thing. She's taking her experience and making it visible. That's the most powerful thing an artist can do. After the opening, the 5 of us went to dinner. 5 women, different ages, different backgrounds, different lives, all connected by one man who'd tried to make us small. We should make this official, Christina said. The Survivors Club. We should meet regularly, support each other, help other women who reach out. Like a support group, Ashley asked. Like a movement, I said, and that's what it became. We started meeting monthly, then weekly. We created a website where women could share their stories anonymously. We started a fund to help women leave difficult relationships, covering first month's rent, security deposits, moving costs. We gave talks at colleges and community centers about recognizing patterns of emotional abuse. The fund grew. We raised money through art sales, speaking fees, donations. In the first year, we helped 37 women leave exploitative relationships In the second year, 82. By the third year, we'd helped over 200 women and had chapters in 5 cities. Daniel's pattern had created a community. His exploitation had sparked a movement. His attempts to make women small had resulted in women becoming powerful. The irony was not lost on any of us. 5 years after the exhibition, I was working in my studio when I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, I owe you an apology. I almost deleted it without reading. I got a lot of emails, and I'd learned to be protective of my time and energy. But something made me open it. Maya, this is Daniel. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to. But I need to say this, and I need you to hear it. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, deeply sorry for how I treated you. For how I treated Ashley, Christina, Emma, and probably others I don't even know. I'd been in therapy for 2 years. Real therapy, not just going through the motions. And I've had to face some hard truths about myself. About the patterns I've repeated. About the harm I've caused. You were right. About all of it. I did make you small. I did exploit you. I did take advantage of your kindness and your love. I did the same thing to every woman I dated. And I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't undo the harm. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I understand what I did. And I'm working every day to be different. I'm not dating anyone. I'm focusing on myself, on understanding why I behaved that way, on changing the patterns. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know that your art, your story, your courage in speaking out, it changed me. It forced me to see myself clearly for the first time. And while I hate what I saw, I'm grateful for the opportunity to change. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Daniel. I read the email 3 times, feeling complicated emotions. Relief that he'd finally acknowledged what he'd done. Anger that it had taken 5 years and multiple women leaving for him to see it. Skepticism about whether the change was real or just another performance. I showed the email to Jenna. What do you think? I asked. I think it doesn't matter, she said. Whether he's really changed or not, whether the apology is genuine or not, it doesn't affect you. You've already moved on. You've already built your life. His growth or lack of growth is his business, not yours. Should I respond? Do you want to? I thought about it, about what I would say, about whether engaging would give him space in my life again, or whether it would provide closure. No, I said finally. I don't think I do. He apologized. I heard it. That's enough. I don't need to respond. I don't need to forgive him or validate his growth or give him absolution. I just need to keep living my life. That's very mature of you. I'm very tired of Daniel Park taking up space in my brain. I archived the email without responding, and I felt lighter for it. Because here's what I'd learned in 5 years. Closure doesn't come from other people. It doesn't come from apologies or explanations or acknowledgments. It comes from within. It comes from deciding that you're done, that you've healed enough, that you're ready to move forward. Daniel's apology didn't give me closure. I'd already found that on my own. But the story doesn't end there. Because 3 months after Daniel's email, I got another message. This one from Rachel, the coworker he'd been talking about when Emma left. Hi, Maya. You don't know me, but I know who you are. I'm Daniel's friend. We work together. He's been telling me about his therapy, about the work he's doing on himself, about how he's changed, and I believe him. I've seen the change. He's different now. He's aware. He's accountable. We've been spending a lot of time together, and I think I'm falling for him. But I'm scared. I've read about you, about Ashley, about Christina, about Emma. I've seen the pattern. And I don't know if people really change or if he's just better at hiding it. Now, I guess I'm asking, do you think he's really different? Do you think it's possible for someone like him to change? I stared at the message for a long time. This was it. The moment where I could warn her, could save her from making the same mistakes we'd all made. Or the moment where I could step back and let her make her own choices. I thought about what I would want someone to tell me if I were in her position. What would have made me listen 5 years ago when I was falling for Daniel and ignoring all the red flags? I wrote back, Rachel, I can't tell you if Daniel has really changed. I haven't seen him in 5 years. I don't know who he is now. What I can tell you is this. Pay attention to actions, not words. Does he respect your boundaries? Does he support your work without making you feel like you owe him? Is your name on the lease? Do you have equal say in decisions? Do you feel like you're growing or shrinking in the relationship? Those are the questions that matter. Not whether he's changed, but whether the relationship is healthy. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And know that if you ever need help, if you ever need to leave, there are people who will support you. You're not alone. Whatever you decide, I hope you choose yourself first, she wrote back. Immediately, thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I think I already know the answer. I just needed permission to trust myself. You have permission, I wrote. You've always had permission. Choose yourself. I don't know what Rachel decided. She never wrote back. But I hope she chose herself. I hope she saw the red flags and walked away before investing years in a relationship that would make her small. And if she didn't, if she chose to stay and see if he'd really changed, I hope. She was right. I hope Daniel really had done the work. I hope he'd broken his patterns and become someone who could love without diminishing. But either way, it wasn't my story anymore. It was hers, and she had to write it herself. 7 years after the exhibition, I was invited to give a TED Talk. The topic, the art of becoming whole. I stood backstage listening to my introduction, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just another speaking engagement. This was a platform that would reach millions of people. This was my chance to say something that mattered, something that would outlast me. The host finished the introduction, and I walked onto that red circle looking out at the audience, at the cameras, at the future. 7 years ago, I began. I made an art exhibition about the worst relationship of my life. Tonight I want to talk about everything that came after. Because the breaking point isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. I told them about the exhibition, but briefly. Just the outline, the coffee table, the opening night, Daniel walking in. I didn't dwell on it. Because that wasn't the point anymore. The exhibition made me successful, I said, but it also trapped me. For years, I was the woman who made art about her ex. Every interview, every article, every conversation came back to that one show, that one relationship, that one man, and I started to resent it. Not the art itself, but the way it had become my entire identity. I paused, letting that land. So 3 years ago, I made a decision. I stopped talking about Daniel. I stopped accepting interviews about the exhibition. I stopped letting that relationship define me. And I started making art about everything else. About joy. About community. About growth. About the life I'd built after leaving. I showed slides of my recent work. Sculptures about friendship. Installations about resilience. Photographs about the beauty of ordinary moments. Work that had nothing to do with pain or revenge or survival. This is the work I'm most proud of, I said. Not because it's better than the exhibition, but because it represents who I am. Now, not who I was then. It represents the whole person I've become, not just the broken person I was. I talked about the Survivors Club, about the women we'd helped, about the community we'd built. I talked about the fund, the chapters in different cities, the movement that had grown from one exhibition into something much larger. Here's what I've learned, I said. Survival is not an identity. It's a chapter. It's an important chapter, a necessary chapter, but it's not the whole book. And if you let it become your whole book, you're still letting the person who hurt you define your story. I saw people nodding, understanding. So yes, tell your story. Make your art. Transform your pain into purpose. But then, when you're ready, move on. Make new art, tell new stories. Become more than your survival. Become whole. The talk ended with a standing ovation. Afterward, hundreds of people reached out. The video got millions of views. And for the first time in 7 years, the conversation wasn't about Daniel. It was about growth, about wholeness, about becoming more than your pain. That same year, I met someone. His name was James. He was a photographer, kind and funny and completely unimpressed by my success. He'd never heard of the exhibition. He didn't know about Daniel. He just knew me as Maya, the artist he'd met at a gallery opening who'd made him. Laugh. Our first date, he asked about my work. I told him about my recent series, about the sculptures and installations I was making. I didn't mention the exhibition, didn't mention Daniel. Just talked about the art I was making now, the life I was living now. You seem really passionate about your work, he said. I am. It's the most important thing in my life. That's great. I love that. My work is really important to me, too. I think we should both protect that. Support each other's work without sacrificing our own. I stared at him. Say that again. Support each other without sacrificing our own work? I just mean I've seen relationships where one person's career becomes more important than the other's. I don't want that. I want us both to thrive. I felt something crack open in my chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the realization that this kind of relationship was possible. That not everyone would ask me to make myself small? I want that too, I said. We dated for a year before moving in together. When we looked at apartments, he insisted both our names be on the lease. It's our home, he said. Both of us should have equal rights to it. Such a simple thing. Such a basic thing, but it meant everything. We split the rent based on our incomes proportionally so neither of us was. Paying more than we could afford. We had separate studios for our work. We supported each other's careers without competition or resentment. We made decisions together. We respected each other's boundaries. It was so easy, so healthy, so different from everything I'd experienced with Daniel. Is this what normal relationships are like? I asked Jenna one day. This is what good relationships are like, she said. Normal is whatever you're used to. You were used to bad. Now you're experiencing good. Don't minimize it by calling it normal. 6 months after James and I moved in, together I got a message from Daniel. I almost didn't open it. I'd gone years without hearing from him. I'd moved on. I was happy. I didn't need him disrupting my peace. But curiosity won. Maya, I saw your TED Talk. It was beautiful. You're right about everything. About survival not being an identity. About becoming whole. I'm trying to do that too. I'm still in therapy. I'm still working on myself. I'm not dating anyone. I'm focusing on being a better person, not for anyone else, but for myself. I wanted you to know that, and I wanted to thank you for holding me accountable, for refusing to let me rewrite history, for being brave enough to tell your truth even when it was hard. You changed my life. I hope I didn't ruin yours. Daniel. I showed the message to James. I told him about Daniel by then, about the exhibition, about everything. He'd listened without judgment, without trying to fix anything, just holding space for my story. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to respond, to acknowledge his growth, to say I'm glad he's doing better. And the other part wants to delete it and never think about him again. Both are valid. What feels right to you? I thought about it. About Daniel's journey, about my own, about how our stories had intersected and then diverged. I think I want to respond, I said. Not for him. For me. To close the loop. To say what I need to say and then be done. I wrote back. Daniel, I'm glad. You're doing the work. I'm glad you're in therapy. I'm glad you're trying to be better. But I need you to understand something. You didn't ruin my life. You made it harder for a while, but I rebuilt it into something better than it was before. I'm happy now. I'm whole now. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who values me. I have a career I love. I have a community I'm proud of. You were a chapter in my story, but you're not the story. I hope you find peace. I hope you become the person you're trying to be. But I don't need updates. I don't need to be part of your journey. I've moved on. I hope you can too. Take care of yourself, Maya. I sent it and immediately blocked his email. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. I didn't need to know about his growth. I didn't need to be his accountability partner or his proof of change. I just needed to live my life. How do you feel? James asked. Free, I said. Finally, completely free. 8 years after the exhibition, James and I got married. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Jenna was my maid of honor. Ashley, Christina, and Emma were bridesmaids. Rebecca came with her daughter, who was in college now studying art. We got married in the gallery, surrounded by art. My art, James's photographs, pieces from friends. It felt right, getting married in a space dedicated to creation, to beauty, to the work we both loved. During the reception, Jenna gave a toast. "I've known Maya for 15 years," she said. "I've seen her at her lowest and her highest. I've seen her broken and I've seen her whole. And I can tell you, the woman standing here today is not the same woman who showed up at my apartment 8 years ago with a suitcase and a broken heart. That woman was surviving. This woman is thriving. That woman was making herself small. This woman takes up space. That woman was defined by her pain. This woman is defined by her joy. James, you're not getting the woman who survived Daniel. You're getting the woman who became herself after Daniel. And that's the best version of Maya there is." Everyone applauded. I cried. James held my hand. Later, during the dancing, Ashley pulled me aside. "I have news," she said. "I'm getting married too, to someone amazing. Someone who sees me. Someone who makes me feel big, not small." "That's wonderful," I said, hugging her. "I wouldn't have found her if I hadn't left Daniel. If I hadn't seen your exhibition. If I hadn't learned that I deserved better. So thank you for being brave first. For showing me it was possible." Christina joined us. "Are we having a Survivors Club moment at Maya's wedding?" "We're having a Thrivers Club moment," I said. "We're not just survivors anymore. We're people who are living full, happy lives. We're people who chose ourselves and built something beautiful." "I like that," Emma said, appearing with a glass of champagne. "The Thrivers Club. That's who we are now. We toasted to that, to thriving, to choosing ourselves, to the lives we'd built from the ruins of relationships that were supposed to break us." 9 years after the exhibition, I had a retrospective at a major museum, 20 years of work from my earliest pieces to my most recent. The exhibition was called Becoming, a retrospective. The museum wanted to include pieces from the Daniel exhibition. Load bearing was in their permanent collection, so that was already there. But they wanted to borrow other pieces from collectors to show that body of work as part of my artistic journey. I said no. "That work is important," the curator argued. "It's what made you famous. People want to see it. That work is one chapter," I said. "This retrospective is about my entire career. I don't want it to be dominated by one exhibition, one relationship, one moment. In time, I want people to see the full arc, the growth, the evolution, the wholeness. We compromised. Load bearing would be included because it was already there, but it would be in the middle of the exhibition, not at the beginning or end. It would be contextualized as one piece in a larger journey, not the defining work of my career." The retrospective opened to incredible reviews. Critics praised the breadth of my work, the evolution of my themes, the way I'd grown as an artist. Some mentioned the Daniel exhibition, but most focused on the later work, the pieces about joy and community and growth. "Maya Chen has become one of the most important artists of her generation," one review said. "Not because of her early work about personal pain, but because of her later work about collective healing. She's moved from the personal to the universal, from the individual to the communal, from survival to thriving. That's what I wanted. To be known for the whole body of work, not just one exhibition. To be seen as an artist who'd grown and evolved, not someone stuck in one moment of pain." The opening night of the retrospective, I stood in the museum surrounded by 20 years of my work, and I felt something profound. Pride, yes, but also completion. The sense that I'd done what I set out to do. I'd transformed my pain into art. I'd helped other people. I'd built a life and a career I was proud of. I'd become whole. James stood next to me, looking at a sculpture I'd made last year. It was called Partnership, and it was 2 separate structures that supported each other without merging, each maintaining its own integrity while creating something beautiful together. "Is this about us?" he asked. "It's about what I learned from us," I said. "That you can be in a relationship and still be yourself. That love doesn't mean sacrifice. That partnership means supporting each other's growth, not limiting it." "I love it," he said. "I love you. I love you too." 10 years after the exhibition, I was invited back to the art school in Boston where I'd given that talk years ago. They wanted me to speak to a new generation of students, to share my journey, to inspire them. I said yes. The auditorium was packed again. Different faces, same hunger for guidance, for hope, for proof that in artistic, life was possible. I told them my story, the whole arc, the relationship with Daniel, the exhibition, the years of being defined by that one show, the decision to move beyond it, the new work, the community, the love, the wholeness. Here's what I want you to know, I said. Your pain is valid. Your story matters. Your art is important, but you are not your pain. You are not your story. You are not just your art. You are a whole, complex, evolving person. And the goal is not just to survive, but to thrive. Not just to make art about your pain, but to make art about your joy. Not just to tell the story of how you were broken, but to tell the story of how you became whole. A student raised her hand. But what if the pain is all I have right now? What if I'm still in the middle of it? Then make art about the pain, I said. Use it, transform it, let it fuel your work. But know that it's not forever. Know that there's a life waiting for you on the other side. Know that the pain is a chapter, not the book. And when you're ready, when you've healed enough, give yourself permission to move on, to make new art, to tell new stories, to become more than your survival, another hand. Do you ever regret the exhibition? Do you ever wish you'd kept it private? No, I said. That exhibition changed my life. It launched my career. It helped countless women leave difficult relationships. It created a community. It transformed my pain into purpose. I don't regret it. But I also don't let it define me anymore. It's part of my story, but it's not the whole story. And that's the balance I want you to find. Honor your experiences. Make art from them, but don't get stuck there. Keep growing. Keep evolving. Keep becoming. After the talk, students lined up to speak with me. They told me their stories. They showed me their work. They asked for advice. And I saw myself in every single one of them. The hunger, the fear, the hope, the determination to turn their experiences into art, their pain into purpose. You're going to be okay, I told each one. You're going to make beautiful work. You're going to survive and then thrive. You're going to become whole. That night, flying home to New York, I thought about the last 10 years. About everything that had happened since that Tuesday in October when Daniel packed my sculptures into liquor store boxes. I thought about the woman I'd been then, scared, small, convinced that love meant sacrifice, convinced that I was lucky to be tolerated, convinced that my work didn't matter as much as his. And I thought about the woman I was now, confident, whole, in a partnership that felt like expansion, not contraction, successful in my career, surrounded by community, happy. The transformation hadn't been instant. It had taken years. Therapy, hard work, mistakes, growth, learning to set boundaries, learning to say no, learning to take up space, learning to value myself. But it had happened. I had become whole, and the best part, I wasn't alone. Ashley was thriving, married, running her own gallery. Christina was in grad school making incredible work. Emma was teaching art to teenagers, helping them find their voices. Sarah had gone back to school, gotten her degree, started her own business. The Survivors Club, now the Thrivers Club, had helped over 500 women leave difficult relationships. We had chapters in 12 cities. We'd raised over $2 million. We'd created a network of support that spanned the country. Daniel's pattern had created a movement. His attempts to make women small had resulted in women becoming powerful, connected, unstoppable. And Daniel? I didn't know. I hadn't heard from him in 2 years. I didn't check his social media. I didn't ask mutual friends about him. He was part of my past, and I was focused on my future. I hoped he'd changed. I hoped he'd done the work. I hoped he'd broken his patterns and become someone who could love without. Diminishing, but whether he had or hadn't, it didn't affect me anymore. I'd moved on. I'd built a life that had nothing to do with him. I'd become whole. The plane landed in New York at midnight. James was waiting for me at the airport holding a sign that said "World's Best." Artist and also my wife. I laughed, kissed him, felt the warmth of coming home. To someone who saw me, valued me, loved me without asking me to be smaller. "How was the talk?" he asked. "Good, really good. I think I helped some people." "Of course you did. You always do." We drove home through the quiet city streets, and I looked out. The window at the lights, at the buildings, at the city that had witnessed my breaking and my rebuilding. I was thinking, James said, what if we bought a place? Something that's ours. Something we could turn into a home and studios. Something permanent. Both our names on the deed, I asked, smiling. Obviously, equal partners, equal investment, equal home. I love that idea. I love you. I love you too. We got home too. Our apartment, our names both on the lease, our art on the walls, our lives. Intertwined but not merged, supporting each other without sacrificing ourselves. I made tea. James edited photos. We sat together in comfortable silence, each doing our own work, each in our own space, each whole and happy and free. This was the real victory. Not the exhibition, not the success, not the revenge. This quiet, ordinary, beautiful life, this partnership, this wholeness, this peace. If you've ever wondered what happens when you finally stop making yourself small, I can tell you. You grow into the person you were always meant to be. You take up space. You create. You love. You thrive. You become whole. And sometimes, late at night, when you're sitting in your home with your partner, doing work you love, living a life you built, you think about the person you used to be, the one who thought love meant sacrifice, the one who paid rent for an apartment she had no legal right to, the one who made herself small to fit into someone else's life, and you feel grateful to her for surviving, for leaving, for having the courage to transform her pain into art, for taking the first step toward wholeness. Because without her, you wouldn't be here, in this home, with this partner, doing this work, living this life. That's the real story, not the breaking, not the revenge, not even the survival. The real story is the becoming, the transformation from broken to whole, from small to expansive, from surviving to thriving. That's the art of becoming whole, and it's available to anyone brave enough to choose themselves, to set boundaries, to leave what's hurting them, to build something new from the ruins. It's not easy, it's not quick, it's not simple, but it's worth it. I promise you, it's worth it. Because on the other side of that pain, on the other side of that leaving, on the other side of that transformation, there's a life waiting for you. A life where you take up space, where you're valued, where you're whole. A life where you're not defined by who hurt you, but by who you became after. A life where you're not just surviving, but thriving. A life where you're not just broken pieces held together, but a complete, beautiful, whole person. That's the life I'm living now. That's the life I want for you. So if any part of this story sounds familiar, if you're the one paying rent for an apartment you have no legal right to, if you're the one making yourself small to fit into someone else's life, if you're the one wondering if this is all, there is, I want you to know, there's more. There's so much more. You deserve better. You deserve partnership, not exploitation. You deserve to be valued, not tolerated. You deserve to take up space, not shrink yourself. And you have the power to choose that, to leave, to rebuild, to become whole. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. I promise you, it will be worth it. Choose yourself. Set boundaries. Leave what's hurting you. Build something new. Become whole. You deserve it. You've always deserved it. And when you do, when you're standing in your own space with your name on the lease and your art on the walls and your life entirely your own, you'll understand what I mean when I say, this is what freedom feels like. This is what wholeness feels like. This is what choosing yourself feels like. It feels like coming home. It feels like breathing. It feels like winning. Not winning against someone else, winning for yourself. That's the real victory. That's the real art. That's the real story. The art of becoming whole. And it starts with one choice, choosing yourself. Make that choice. Take that step. Begin that journey. Your whole beautiful, expansive life is waiting for you. All you have to do is choose it. Exhale. Choose yourself. Become whole. You got this.